Right in the neck of the
Push the button to be off. You'll push it, no, just push it when you're on the top. Okay. Darlene, is there anything else other than what's on the blue card? No. Basically. Okay. You've got time, we got about 2 minutes. Two people coming through the rain, so. Oh, who haven't gotten born around the table yet? Yeah, I think you could go ahead. It's very simple. So we're going to try our best to not have the feedback issues we had last month. In order to do that, your mics are placed. Oh, y'all already changed your back. Your mics are placed face toward you. Grabs to speak, you're grabbing the base automatically, not the mic. So if it's base toward you, you're going to pick it up. You're just going to talk into it. You're going to put it down. Everyone to our May meeting of the Children's Trust of Alachua County Board. We have a few people dealing with this rarity called rain storm.
Hallelujah.
Yeah. Board members who will probably be arriving wet, and we will receive them graciously. Why they're just a little bit late. But we've got a lot of business today, some presentations that are really important, so we want to get started. As a reminder and to ground us all in the work, the mission of the Children's Trust of Alachua County is to fund and support a coordinated system of community services that allows all youth and their families to thrive. Any member of the public wishing to be heard, and it's great to see so many people here with us, shall come forward to the podium at the appropriate time, introduce themselves to the board, and you'll be recognized to have 3 minutes to speak on a single subject. And it should, or to address the current motion on the floor. And the clerk of the trust will function as our official timekeeper to keep us all on pace. Please be reminded that our policy does prohibit any asks, funding requests from the podium. Should a member of the public wish to make a funding request or inquire about funding, please contact our executive director or staff for consideration. And our clerk will now call roll and verify that we have at least 5 members of the trust physically present for today's meeting.
Member Tina Certain.
Here.
Chair Mary Chance.
Here.
Vice Chair Ken Cornell. Here. Dr. Nancy Hart, member. Dr. Maggie Labarda, member.
Here.
Dr. Kamala Patton, member. Honorable Judge Philip A. Pena, member.
Here.
Treasurer Lee Pinkeson.
Here.
And member Melissa Walker is virtual. Madam Chair, that is your roll, and there is quorum.
Thank you. Okay. On to our consent agenda, our approval of the agenda for today's meeting. The consent agenda does include a number of items that you'll see listed here. And I want to call that to your attention and ask if there is a motion. The agenda and the consent.
Second.
Oh, I'm sorry. No changes. Okay.
I did.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Moving forward, this is our first opportunity for any general public comments before we get into the meat of the meeting. Would anyone like to come forward and address the board? Please do state your name and if you represent an organization, that as well.
Hello, everyone. My name is Grayson Valentine. I'm the executive director for AMI Kids Gainesville, and I've brought a student with me today that has a few things she'd like to say to you all.
This every month, and they're tricky for us too. It's okay.
There you go.
There you go.
Right now. There you go. Hello, everyone. My name is Samai Baptiste. I am 18 years of age, and I've been with AMI Kids since 2025. Before joining the program, I struggled with self-confidence and maturity. I was also spending time around the wrong people, and I knew I needed to make a change. I came to AMI Kids because I wanted to start working and build a better future for myself. School was difficult for me. Before this program, I did not like being around so many people, and I knew I needed a different environment. After I left middle school, AMI Kids gave me that opportunity. It gave me the place where I could focus, get support, and move at a pace that helped me learn. A lot of young people have been through things that affect the choices they make and the direction their life takes. Programs like this matter because they give students another chance. For me, the staff have made a big difference. Ms. Woods has taken the time and I needed to learn, and the encouragement from staff has helped me keep going even when things were hard. Since joining the program, I have had opportunities that have meant a lot to me. I have been able to go on trips, get a full-time job, get my driver's license, and have a graduation that my family can attend. Those may seem small to some people, but it's helped me feel proud of myself and see that I'm moving forward. I am proud of the milestones I have reached while being in this program, especially getting a job and keeping that job. My goals are to save enough money to buy a car and eventually move into my own apartment. I'm also studying for the PERT test so I can enroll in Santa Fe College CNA program. I am thankful to the people who fund this program. Without AMI Kids, my life would look very different. Programs like this are necessary because there are still so many young people that, like me, who need support, encouragement, and another chance. This program really does help young people get their lives back on track. Thank you for hearing me speak.
Thank you for being here. And congratulations to you. Guest?
You have to hold the Is it working? Oh, yay, okay. So good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Rachel Ryan, and I serve as the Executive Director of Family Promise of Gainesville. But before I ever held this title, I was someone who personally understood instability, trauma, and what it feels like to know where safety will not know where safety will come from. That lived experience is what drives me every single day to fight for the families and children in our communities. At Family Promise, we are seeing a crisis unlike anything that we have experienced before. Across Alachua County, from Gainesville to Hawthorne, High Springs to Micanopy, families are struggling just to survive. Behind the image of a thriving university town is a very different reality for many children. Nearly 1,000 students in Alachua County Public Schools have been identified as homeless under the McKinney-Vento Act. These are children sleeping in their cars, motels, overcrowded homes, or unstable situations while still trying to attend school, complete homework, and simply be kids. And the truth is, homelessness does not just impact where a child sleeps, it impacts every part of their future. When a child is worried about where they will sleep at night, they cannot focus on reading, learning, or emotional growth. Research shows that children experiencing homelessness are far less likely to read at grade level, and children who are not reading proficiently by third grade are significantly more likely to drop out of school later on in life. Housing stability is not separate from child well-being. Housing stability is child well-being. At Family Promise of Gainesville, we believe every child deserves a safe place to rest, learn, heal, and grow. Right now, our community is facing tremendous pressure. Families are working full-time jobs and still cannot afford housing. Many are one car repair, one medical emergency, or one missed paycheck away from homelessness. Nearly half of households in Alachua County fall below the ALICE threshold, meaning they are working but still struggling to meet the basic needs. And unfortunately, the safety net for families in our community has continued to shrink. With the closures of St. Francis House and Arbor House, Family Promise is now one of the only organizations solely focused on serving families with children experiencing homelessness in Alachua County. That reality is heartbreaking because the need has not gone away. If anything, it has grown. At Family Promise, we see these realities every single day. We see parents doing everything they can to keep their children stable. We see children trying to stay focused in school while carrying burdens no child should ever have to carry. But we also see resilience. We see families who need support, guidance, and opportunity to regain stability, and when they receive that support, lives change. Family Promise currently maintains a 96% success rate of families remaining stably housed after 1 year. We know that when families are connected to housing support, case management, community resource, and compassionate care, that they succeed. Thank you for caring about the children and families of Alachua County, and thank you for allowing me to share a small part of what we are seeing in our community every day.
Thank you, Rachel. And you'll note on the agenda later today, we'll be learning more about McKinney-Vento data and a lot of the information you're relating to, so thank you. Anyone else? Again, have opportunities later on specific items. Chair's report. I don't have a specific report other than I had a wonderful 2-week vacation and wedding in Hawaii. So I'm happy to be back and happy that it's raining here and didn't rain on my daughter's wedding day in Hawaii. So that's one report. Second, we do have a joint meeting with the County Commission coming up June 11th, and we have a planning call this Thursday at 2 o'clock to really talk high level about the items on that agenda. So if any board members have suggestions of items, certainly some of the big community-wide issues that we're talking about will bubble up, and things that have been on our agenda before, but please let Marcia or me know if there are things that you would like considered for that agenda. And with that, I think we're ready for the Executive Director's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. A couple of items I want to highlight from this past month. We held a summer literacy convening. We had 13 camps participate, and if you all will remember, literacy was not one of our requests from our camps. However, I think it's impressive that we have 13 camps that are interested in literacy and interested in ensuring that it is a part of what they do, in addition to the fun, right? Because we did want to make sure that we maintain the fun. I want to say kudos to our team, Dr. Amy Wagner, for all of her hard work. Jenny, your hard work in, initially it was going to be in person, and we kind of pivoted to host this convening online. The board member Certain, if you will remember, you suggested that we invite Dr. Coleman King to share some of the work that she has been able to do with Freedom School and their successes. So it really was a great convening with a lot of information shared from UF Card to Dr. Coleman King, Dr. Wagner created a Padlet of resources. A really, really great convening. And then secondly, I just wanted to say thank you to some of the providers. Board Member Chance joined me at the school district office. We were able to hear from the Amplified students. That was one of our visits. We have been able to hit Kids Count, Girls Place, and then our community partnership schools. So we were at Rollins, Metcalf, and Howard Bishop. We already know that our providers are special, right? We know that. The work that they do is important, but to be on site with them, to have the opportunity to hear their heart, see their work, but hear their heart, it makes me really proud to be affiliated with the Trust and really proud to be affiliated with our providers. So for any of you in the room who are our providers, thank you all again for the work that you do. It's important work, and I just want you all to know that we see you and we truly appreciate you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Awesome, and welcome Dr. Kamala Patton and Dr. Nancy Hart. Thank you for battling your way through the rain, but wanted our guests to know that 2 more board members have arrived to participate. All right. We do have, Marsha, are you ready to go on to item 13 and 14?
There's a great presentation.
Thank you, Treasurer Pinkerton. If you all will remember, we brought forward at our last meeting the recommendation from the Finance Committee that we increase our reserves from 2% to 3% of our fund balance. So this is the actual policy. You'll see the strike through. Literally, the only thing we changed was the 2 months of the operating revenue to 3 months. So that's the change.
Any comments? Comments from the public? All right. All in favor, please indicate.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you for that weedy work on that policy. So. All right, moving on. Nonprofit life cycle assessment pilot proposal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So board members, this harkens back to our new strategic plan. If you will remember, in our new strategic plan, we are now including a new goal, which is to build capacity of our providers, in addition to building the trust capacity. We had the opportunity to go through the training for the nonprofit life cycle, where we talked about where the trust is. Moving forward, we will be requiring all of our providers to also have this training. The training is really to help them build their capacity to be better, to be stronger entities and organizations that do this work. We would like to, instead of holding off until after the new fiscal year, we would like to begin with a pilot with our after-school program. So there are 7 after-school providers. We will be asking them to join us in this pilot program. It will require the facilitator to give them the same training that she provided to you. We will then ask them, their executive director and a member of their board, to complete the assessment, and then they will sit with the facilitator and develop a plan that they decide will help them become a stronger organization. We are asking to start with this pilot because we want to start small. and build. We feel like this is a wonderful opportunity for this cohort of folks to give us feedback on the process and also hopefully be ambassadors for everyone else that will be doing this work moving forward come the fall. So that's the background on what you see in the packet, which is the proposal from the consultant.
I'll make a motion, move with staff recommendation. So
Comments?
My comment is make sure they know we had to do this. We're not asking them to do anything we didn't have to do.
Now, I really like the idea of it being a pilot too, before the October start. Formally, I think we'll learn a lot. So, any other comments?
I actually had a question, yeah. This is with Teresa Beachy? No, I know this is Tracy, but I don't know why I'm thinking.
Because what will happen is once the plan is developed, they will work the plan with C&E. So the work then turns over to the provider working with the Center for Nonprofit Excellence on whatever the plan is that they develop.
And then
I think I remember. You remember Teresa came and did a presentation way back, but then Tracy came and walked us through ours.
Assessment, yes.
That is in our email.
okay. And then secondly, the $6,000, is that the entire cost, or is that a base with an hourly billing?
That is the entire cost.
Follow up to that, the 300, that 6,000 does not include the 300.
Correct. The assessment goes to the company that does the assessments, not to the facilitator.
Other comments or questions? Here we go. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and Board. I just wanted to thank you for supporting the C&E and their pilot project to do the life cycle planning with providers like us. We just finished ours, and they came and met with our staff, then met with our board, and then met with staff and board together. So we had full engagement of everyone, and it was a really, really great deep dive for us, and we really appreciate it because those things are super expensive, and so we appreciate your supporting the C&E and providing that kind of support to us. I do have a quick question. When you say that it will be required eventually of providers, I just think it's really important that it be really clear that if they've already, like, when do they have to do it again? Like, just what are the parameters are so everyone knows what to expect. But it was a really great experience, and I know you all did it, encourage all the not-for-profits to take advantage of the opportunity. Oh, so sorry, Sherry Kitchens, Child Advocacy Center.
Sherry, thank you for that feedback. That's well taken on the, since this is all new, to make sure we are super clear. Or have a motion and a second, and I wasn't sure if this actually did require board action. Okay.
I pulled it out.
Okay, great. All right, we have a motion and a second. Questions? All in favor? Okay. Somebody else had a question? Okay, we are on to new business before we have some really exciting presentations today. But for our new business item, the strategic plan pathway, programmatic and funding realignment framework. We're calling on our very own Belita James, the CTAC Director of Program Operations.
Good afternoon. I will be walking you through the overview of the strategic plan pathway, the framework that our team created for programmatic and our funding realignment process. And Amy will then take you on a deeper dive, which will include an example. Also, to call to your attention, we have placed an updated slide. You have an updated presentation in front of you that is more in-depth, and it includes the presentation and has some definitions as well. So the framework was developed to provide a more objective approach to evaluating the programs, the services, and our organizational priorities. It is designed to help ensure strategic alignment by making sure that all the initiatives support the organization's mission as well as our long-term goals. Secondly, the framework is designed to maximize the impact by focusing on resources and efforts on programs that we provide that are strategically aligned with our plan. Also, it supports a data-driven decision-making process by incorporating measurable criteria, performance indicators, and operational considerations into this evaluation process rather than us being subjective. We don't want to come at it from a subjective viewpoint. Finally, the framework provides consistency across decision-making by establishing a standard process that can be applied fairly and transparently. Overall, this framework is intended to strengthen our accountability, improve planning, as well as guide thoughtful organizational decisions moving forward into our upcoming fiscal years. Fast, okay. The decision-making process, as you see, this is the way we approached it. First, we identified contract types. When I'll explain all this on the upcoming slides, we identified contract types. Then we scored programs, we will apply weights, and then determine recommendations. First, to identify a contract type, we have committed contracts, and those are our multi-year legally bound contracts, mainly the contracts that we have come into agreement through RFPs. And those are, we said we would give 3-year funding, 2-year funding. Those were not considered for discontinuation, but I do want to point out that that does not mean that at contract renewals or at mid-year reviews that these contracts cannot be reduced or modified. They still can be reduced, they still can be modified throughout when we get ready to do renewals, which will be coming up soon, and in mid-year review, which heavily relies on the CQI process to see, where they are as far as their measures and how they are doing as far as invoicing. Are you forecasting or able to draw down the majority of your budget? So secondly, we identify annual contracts starting there. These are the contracts that we have annual commitments with, where they are reviewed every year. We review them based on CQI, we review it based on the things that I just spoke about. These contracts typically can be reduced and or discontinued. So we started there first, looking at the realignment. Then the next step is to going into the scoring and evaluation. The goal is to create a fair, consistent, and measurable process for comparing programs and supporting informed recommendations. So we have a scale from 1 to 5, as you see, 1 being very weak alignment with our strategic plan, and then 5 having a very strong alignment with the strategic plan. This system allows us to assess programs consistently across the categories. This evaluation also incorporates a weighted criteria, as you see. You have strategic plan alignment, community need, cost effectiveness, outcomes, and data quality, and also uniqueness and duplication. This means that some factors are considered more important or given more value based on our priorities and strategic goals. It does not mean that we don't feel that all programs are important, but we are giving value based on our strategic plan. The largest weight is placed on strategic alignment at 55%. This reflects the importance of ensuring that programs directly support the organization's mission, vision, and long-term objectives. In the updated presentation that you have, if you go forward maybe 1 or 2 pages, it's the scoring rubric, and it basically gives you a description of what we're looking for. Directly support strategic priorities and intended outcomes and impact. So basically, if a program has a very strong strategic alignment, there should be strong impact, because everything drives from that program being aligned with our strategic plan. The how well, the how much, and specifically the better offs. So if it has a strong strategic alignment, then we should expect that we should have strong impacts to go towards our goal. Community need and cost effectiveness are weighted at 10%, recognizing the importance of serving community priorities while also being mindful of financial accountability. I want to say that this is something that we look at renewals and when we do mid-year reviews. So what we're looking for here is to say that we already know we have the indicators. We know that it is a need in the community. And then also cost effectiveness. Are you being accountable, drawing down your dollars? Do you have the ability? Do you have things in place? Are you taking part of, will you take part in the capacity building that we are going to set out for providers to be able to do those things? Outcomes and data quality account for 20% of the evaluation, emphasizing measurable results, program performance, and the ability to demonstrate impact through reliable data. So basically, you could have a great program. They could have great data quality. They could meet all of their measures, but if not strongly aligned with the strategic plan, it doesn't mean that we're making a strong impact in that goal area.
Question, I don't know if this is more for Belita or for us as a board. When I look at strategic plan alignment, I would think our strategic plan is looking to address the needs and the gaps that are in our community. So to me, it seems a little odd to have community need as one of the criterias, because we're existing to address the gaps. When you rounded our work, Chair, you read that, right? So it's a little odd to me that we're then going to pull that out and say you'll get 10% of your score if you're addressing community needs, because our strategic plan is supposed to be looking at the things that are important to us in the gaps and services.
So would your suggestion be to roll that 10% into the 55%? Would that be your suggestion?
That's what I was thinking,
Okay.
roll it down to something else, but it seems duplicate to me. Is it?
I had the same question. I had the same question, and my thought would have been to roll it down to outcomes and data quality.
I was going to wait till the end. I'm sorry. Belita, I have a question about when the evaluation criteria and weights you're taking place. Is this after the program has been already approved and it's the end of the year, or before we allot them money?
Well, actually, we're going to be doing it starting after this. We're in the process of it now. We'll be doing it now.
Okay, well, at that point, it makes sense to have the strategic plan alignment. I thought it was evaluation because after the program at the end of the year. So are they going to do you just do a regular evaluation at the end of the year just to see where they met their performance measures?
Yes, we'll use the same process that we use for CQI. So
the way we're awarding it in this scenario, because I thought it was going to be an evaluation afterwards, in which case I didn't see that it made much sense to have a strategic plan alignment, because they got money, they should have been already approved for the strategic plan. But this way, if it's before you're awarding it, how are you gonna come up with the performance measures and outcomes, because they haven't implemented the plan? So is it going to be
I interpret it as that they have to put together in their proposal an effective plan for how they're going to document their outcome and quality impact.
Okay, all right, yes, ma'am.
I would say also, this is kind of the process we're using for programs we're currently funding for renewals.
Right.
Okay, well, now, if that's the case, then that kind of, that, if it's for renewal, that's a whole different kettle of worms, because they should be aligning already with the strategic plan.
Have a new strategic plan.
Yeah.
I realize that.
Okay.
I realize that, but in the future year, so is this just going to be a 1 year way of rationalizing or evaluating the programs? Because if it's for future years after, they wouldn't have been awarded the money because they weren't aligning with the strategic plan. So if it's for this year only, I understand. The only problem is it won't be until renewal, until we see how their performance measures, the outcomes were. So
this would be used, if you all think back to the last time we had a strategic plan and we had to sunset some programs because we needed to try to realign, programs with our plan. Similar, right, process. However, with our new plan, while it is similar to our old plan, we're being very targeted in our new strategic plan. We've really broken it down with a lot of focuses. So we attempted with this process to say we're going to weight it, try to be as objective as possible when looking at all of the programs and weighting them based on these new targeted goals that we have across every single pillar of our new plan. This is what we're doing for now. We will come back, right, after we've done this process to then there may be changes that will come to CQI and that process. But this will at least get us started with realigning our strategic plan and our budget based on our new goals.
okay, I understand what you're saying, and just for the record, Marcia and I have already had this conversation. I don't believe in getting people without a notice. Belita, where I'm going with this essentially is I think outcomes and data quality are really important. I wouldn't, as far as strategic plan is concerned, this year, if you want to keep these scores the way they are, it's fine because we have changed the strategic plan, but going forward, people should already know what the strategic plan is. Those numbers should be less, and at that time, you have the opportunity to evaluate the outcomes and quality for this year. And I think it's all about, whether we're successful or not is going to be the performance measures. So I kind of think cost effectiveness and outcomes and data quality are probably very, very important. And for this year, I understand about the strategic plan alignment, but next year, I think that the outcomes and data quality and cost effectiveness should be higher, and strategic plan obviously less.
Member Cornell?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with Member Surton's point. My percentages, because we spent a lot of time on the strategic plan, I would take the 10% community need and split it equally between strategic plan and outcomes. So I like 60% strategic plan, 25% outcomes and data quality, 10% cost effectiveness, and 5%.
Thank you.
Hard?
I am just a little stuck on what we're calling cost effectiveness, because I think of cost effectiveness as something like a not-for-profit organization that lives on a shoestring and is really good at it. But here, it looks like if they don't use all the allocated funds, they lose points rather than getting an attaboy for that. So I guess I think I think you're totally legit in wanting people to expend their funds, because we've seen many organizations just aren't spending the funds, and then at the end, they spend all the money, and that's not a good way to run your business. But perhaps we shouldn't call it cost effectiveness. We should call it something else.
Agree.
Perhaps, if it so pleases the board and the rest of the CTAC department, perhaps we could call it something such as utilization rates or utilization. That would normalize or, be typical in referring to financial ratios.
Things, I had a question. Member Cornell, what you said you would suggest strategic alignment, and what was the second category?
I heard 60% under strategic plan alignment, 10%, whatever we're calling cost effectiveness, but fund utilization, 25% outcomes and data.
Oh, so he was gonna move it to outcomes, okay. Okay, that was the first thing. Then this, so I'm not married to either one of them. I kind of like pushing it down to someplace else, but if since we are trying to realign the programs that we fund with our strategic plan, I'm okay with moving, making the strategic plan alignment higher. But what I want to circle back to is the cost effectiveness or utilization. I'm kind of coming down in the middle, because I know we had two programs that we were funding, but they couldn't hire staff. Like Child Advocacy Center was one, if I'm recalling correctly. So that's not a good program or whatever, but if you can't hire staff, you can't, and it is part of it's aligned with our strategic plan, meets a need. So I feel like so I think we want to be real careful with how we weight that and do that, so I don't know, but.
And I think what happens is that we approach it objectively, and then once we get down to see what we have left, then subjective things, as what you mentioned, come into play. So if we have rationale to say, hey, I know that this, you scored 10% in this area, however, we know that that was because you had an issue hiring staff, that is taken into consideration. This is just more the objective part of approaching it.
So then if that be the case, if we take a look at it that way, I would agree with Member Cornell, our Vice Chair, saying that we increase the first one, and the outcomes and data quality would be for the community need, because it does seem to duplicate.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think cost effective, the thing we've talked about with cost effectiveness that's not reflected in the discussion so far is it a reasonable amount of money to pay for what we're buying? That's my usual definition of cost effectiveness. And if we can get, cost per child or whatever, that becomes a measure of that. If what we're talking about is the ability to draw down your money, that to me is a different issue. That has a whole lot of other factors that can weigh into it, but I think we've raised concerns before, and we should have some criteria or some evaluation somewhere that suggests that we care about whether it's a reasonable cost for what we're buying.
Very quickly, maybe I just didn't get an answer to the question. So is this solely before the entity gets the money, or ongoing?
Yes, this is for our upcoming fiscal year, so we are realigning our programs. So some programs will be discontinued based on where we, once we get done with this process. So it is for the upcoming fiscal year, not the current programs that we have. Well, it's for the current programs that we have, but there won't be any changes in this fiscal year. October 1, yes.
And then the criteria for evaluating the programs ongoing is different than this?
Yes.
I'll move approval with the changes to the percentages.
Further discussion?
One thing, Madam Chair. So, Madam Executive Director, for next year, as a bring up a proposal, to me is that if the request for monies comes in and they don't meet it's either a yes, they do, or no, they don't. And if they don't, that I think that there should be a different scoring system, because if they don't meet the strategic plan alignment, then there's no sense in even evaluating the proposal. So before y'all come next year, leave the status quo for this year with the changes that have just been, but next year, when we do the RFP, just submit it, and then we'll have a different scoring system.
So if you think about, we are, this is the second summer of our summer RFP. So they have another summer, next summer. But sometime next year, we will put out a new RFP for summer programs, right? So what we would be asking for of the new, in that new RFP, would be aligned with our strategic plan, our new strategic plan. What we're looking at currently are any programs that we don't have a 3 or 2 year commitment that potentially could be sunset at the end of this fiscal year.
Formal action required? Okay. But what I heard was strategic.
We got to vote on, we have to vote on the new percentages, because we did.
Percentages, strategic plan alignment, 60%, this is what I heard, suggestion for change. Cost effectiveness, although that may be that financial aspect. Outcomes and data quality.
Aye.
Thank you so much.
I will turn it over to Amy, and she will walk you through the process by showing you an example.
Do we need to do that?
We will not. All right, thank you.
However, we do want to let the board know that we will be sending out a letter to all providers, giving them an update that we are going to begin this process, and there may be changes to contracts. We don't know right now in this moment which contracts. Of course, we will bring that back to you, but we didn't think it was fair to our providers without giving them notification. So we want to give them as much notice as possible.
Thank you, Belita and Amy. I know Amy's brokenhearted, but she would be happy to meet with you one-on-one and walk through the example.
But we knew it was going to be a great presentation.
That was a lot of work, and important work, for sure. Okay, now we've got 3 presentations. First, Dolly Parton Imagination Library, evaluation results with Connie Wagner, Research Planning and Evaluation Coordinator for CTAC.
Evening. I am presenting on the Dolly Parton Imagination Library, which is a family-centered literacy program for families with children birth through age 5. I'm joined in the audience by Yolanda Hagley and Rick Carnell from the Gainesville Thrives, who implement the Imagination Library program here locally. In your packet, you received the program's logic model, which I'll walk through briefly. The program provides free books and guidance for parents and children reading together. Each child enrolled receives an age-appropriate book monthly, mailed to their home until their 5th birthday. Along with the books, parents receive book-sharing guides with tips on reading with their children and building their literacy skills. The monthly arrival of books and tip sheet serves as a reminder and motivation to read with their children frequently and how to ask questions and interact during book time. The short-term impacts include enhanced home literacy environment, earlier onset of reading with their children, increased frequency and duration of reading with their children, as well as more books in the home. The program also inspires interest and a love of learning from an early age, and connection and bonding in the interactions that it inspires between parents and their children. Over time, this strengthens children's emergent literacy skills, such as letter recognition, concepts about print, vocabulary, which leads to a longer-term impact of children entering kindergarten ready to succeed. The Children's Trust has been funding the Imagination Library since fiscal year 2022 with an initial investment of $14,000. In fiscal year 2024, we expanded that investment to $30,000. As you could see, the expansion of the children served. And in fiscal year 2025, that again expanded to $60,000. With this expansion in 2025, 1,608 children were served with the funding from the Children's Trust. The Dolly Parton Imagination Library serves 8 zip codes in Alachua County, and they're shown on the screen, along with how many children are being served in the 2025 fiscal year. So our initial zip codes were the Gainesville zip codes of 32609, 32608, and 32641. In fiscal year 2023, we expanded with the additional investment to serve 32601 and 07, and then in fiscal year 2024, we expanded to the rural zip codes of 32618, which is Archer, 32640, which is Hawthorne, and then 32667. In addition to the book distribution, Gainesville Thrives is also out there in the community quite a bit. With the help of their volunteers, they had 125 outreach events to help increase recruitment of families in the program, as well as literacy events to help support parents building literacy in their homes. So the map shows where those events occurred, which kind of coincide with the zip codes that are being serviced, and a list of those locations. So cumulatively, in Alachua County, there's been over 3,000 children that have enrolled in the Dolly Parton Imagination Library program. Children can enroll at any point between birth and 4 years old, and they'll receive a book mailed to their home each month. Through 2025, the children received over 68,000 books. The books mailed are age appropriate and selected by a panel of experts, along with those developmental appropriate guides on how to engage with the child at that particular age in reading. In your packet, you'll see the 2026 book list of the quality books, and Yolanda has also brought some samples of the books that the children receive in the home that we wanted to share with you. They're really lovely books that parents get to engage with their children, and they're in addition to the books, there's tip sheets inside the books that parents have so they can know how to engage. There's also, when she does her literacy events, in the back she has a cardstock printout that shows tips for how to read the books with excitement and emphasize the words and point, and reading left through right and counting images, and all skills that help children become strong readers. Once children reach their 5th birthday, they graduate from the program and they receive the final book, Look Out Kindergarten, Here I Come. With every year, we do a survey with parents that are in the program. In the fall 2025 survey, parents report very positive results that they're reading more often with their child. Some parents, the reason they signed up for the program is because they like reading with their child, so they read about the same. Almost all parents felt more encouraged to read more with their child. Getting that book every month is a reminder that to read frequently with their child and to start reading at a young age. And nearly all parents recommended the program, the books in the program. They liked the books. They said their children enjoyed the books. The last pie chart with the children receiving books helped children to learn more words. The majority do agree and say yes. Some say they're not sure, and some say they felt their child was too young to read or speak, and which is interesting, showing that parents do appreciate the guidance and the tips and knowing what to expect of their child at that age. Also, some parents might not, some of the comments that we see is that parents might not know reading to a baby is a thing. Parents usually might not think to read to their child until their child is old enough to understand the words or really start to speak. So the program really emphasizes that importance of reading from birth. Not too young to read to a child at a young age. Also having that resource of the book. Sometimes when you're financially strapped and you're deciding between food and a book, the food is always gonna win over. So those are some of the survey results. This is my standard performance measure slide for the targets and the outcomes for how much, how well, and better off. So they met all their targets for the 2025 year. There's a lot of exciting research that's going on in the world of Dolly Parton Imagination Library. Some that's just came out recently, which I included in the packet. So the Dolly Parton Imagination Library is a worldwide, well-researched program that helps children get access to books, and studies throughout this country and internationally have demonstrated that children in the program are showing greater emergent literacy skills, interests in books, they're being asked to be read to more, they are being read to more. And that handout in the packet kind of summarizes a study where it involved over 86,000 parents in 5 countries, with the bulk of the responses coming from the United States, showing children are more likely to be read to, better home environments, better home reading routines, lots of great findings to show the interest and really that they're developing that love of reading. We also know reading is a significant predictor in terms of their kindergarten readiness. There have also been a number of studies that look at the link between children engaged in the program and kindergarten readiness with successful results. So the CTAC is currently in the process of partnering with the Gainesville Thrives, the school district, and the Dollywood Foundation to do a local research to learn whether the children engaged in our Dolly Parton Imagination Library are indeed also demonstrating higher kindergarten readiness, with the key research questions being, do the children in the Dolly Parton Library that were engaged perform better than children in the county overall? Do they perform better than children that are comparable demographically but not in the program? And do they do better than children that were enrolled in the Dolly Parton for a lesser duration? Because you can enroll any time between 0 to 4 years old. And so we are partnering with the school district for the kindergarten data, partnering with the Dollywood to get permission to use the foundation's data and to see how the outcomes of the children that have been funded through our program. That concludes my presentations. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. I'm personally really thrilled to see that The Little Engine That Could is still the first book. You know, it's a cultural reference. It's a frame of reference that students could have with their teachers. And I have one quick question, and it sounds like we have a couple others, but I've heard this in other communities, and it's sort of appropriate that we're talking about highly mobile families in the same conversation today with some presentations, but how do you handle returned books? Or is there what happens with books that don't reach that family, or do people have to re-enroll every year?
Oh, sorry. Yes, thanks. Once they're enrolled until they turn age 5. On some of the books that you have in front of you are what we use to kind of make sure that the books are being delivered. So we have like 5 children that are enrolled that we are able to monitor to make sure that the books are being received every single month. And so we really haven't had an issue with return books. The way that it works is that because they're sent out in bulk, most of the time, if the family does not receive it, we'll get an email that said, hey, I didn't receive a book, some level of communication to let us know it's if the book hasn't been received. But yeah, they do not automatically return back. I hope I answered that question.
Yeah,
But tell
I
me-
just, another community, I heard that the postmaster actually had a deal locally with the agency to say,
Yes.
I have all of these books, could they go out to other kids? I'm just wondering about books that don't find their home.
So what we've done in the past, and we have had that issue, and yes, we were able to actually pick them up from the postmaster and we delivered them. We contacted the parent, so we were able to deliver them. But as I said, the vast majority of the time, although the books are delivered, because the Dolly Parton Foundation, they have a system where they make sure that they're connected with the post office, that it makes sure that the book is mailable before it goes out. So if it doesn't have a address that has any level of issue within the postal system, then we have to, we have to have a corrected address.
Very helpful, thank you. I think, do we have Ken first?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Love this program. It's really great. I'm really excited to see, too, the data that comes back with regards to those kids that have been enrolled in the program, how they score. I noticed on one of the slides, fiscal year 2024, we had 830 enrolled, and then it almost doubled to 1,608. What happened? What did we do?
Well,
We doubled the funding.
yeah, yeah, that's exactly what happened. That we had a splurge, and so much so that for our largest zip code, we had to put in kind of a monitor so they have to send their applications in via mail. They can't go online and register just because of that surge. And with us trying to keep up with the families that want to register, we need increased funding. So again, we come across families in different zip codes that really want the program.
So what would you say, based on that, is the need that's not being filled?
Funding?
Yeah, how many kids?
Projected in all of the zip codes. We did that.
About 15,000 kids in Alachua County that are under 5 years old. In the zip codes we serve, there's 7,500, and we're serving about, 2,500?
2,500.
So
And how many of those are in 32641?
Yeah.
I did a slide as a backup slide, but
I
I'm
can
kind of
grab
glad I
mine.
did. But this shows the population and then the saturation.
Yeah, we have 257, which 4-1 is our targeted area. We do the vast majority of our outreach in 32609 and 32641, and also in Hawthorne. So the vast majority of our outreach efforts are specifically in those zip codes.
And what other institutions in Alachua County are funding this program to help with literacy?
Well, we participate in the Amazing Give. We do our own personal organizational drives. Clay Electric has also provided funding. The Friends of the Library, we've gotten funding from Friends of the Library. We got a Dollar General grant.
Any other government agencies? County Commission, City Commission, Library?
We just recently got funded through the gun violence grant through the county, so they're funding a portion in our 32608 area as well.
How much is the county funding out of the gun violence? Because I was going to bring this up tomorrow at the county.
Yeah.
How much?
The 26.
26,000. Yeah, 32641. Yeah, so, members, you know, so the 1608, that was 63,000 for the 1608 this year, is that what it came out
Yeah,
to?
2,
39, yeah, 37 to 39, it's really
yeah, it's
good.
$37, yeah, exactly.
That
That's
is
about
a
it, 37.
really good value, and if we're really talking about changing literacy, this seems like a really, really cost-effective and wonderful program. You know, kids that are waiting for that book in the mail, families that are waiting for that book in the mail, and creating that habit, I think is really, really great. I will talk to the county tomorrow about increasing your funding, because what I'm hearing you say is more funding gets us more kids in these targeted zip codes.
Absolutely,
Yeah, and-
absolutely.
And I think the literacy initiative that Leah's doing and that we are doing as a collective community, we can really focus in on that, and this can be building so that Leah has less work to do from K through 3.
Absolutely,
That's the goal. So
absolutely.
thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Oh, we do have two more questions, I think.
sorry,
Member
sorry.
Certain and Member Hart.
So, City of Alachua, 32615, I think is a zip for there. Is there a reason why they're not, I mean, I know you mentioned rural, and so I know we have a lot of low-income families that live in that zip, a lot of need there. Is there,
So as a matter of fact, Alachua was one of the first areas that we wanted to expand to, but because the numbers in Alachua and High Springs were so high, we couldn't open up, it's open enrollment. And so just the sheer numbers in Alachua was the reason why we had to go with some of the smaller rural areas. So we went with Hawthorne, Micanopy, and Archer, which had a smaller population under the age of 5. But that was the projection. So literally, it's just funding. It's literally funding.
Barta?
So I don't know if you're already doing this, but can they get a library card as a graduation present?
Well, we definitely are pushing our graduates. So last year, we actually had, we've done 2 graduation celebrations at the CADE, which is one of our partners. And so, yes, definitely for our graduation, we're trying to push whatever we can in regards to resources. And we're always, and I'll say our outreach, we make sure that we're with the CADE and the Alachua County Library. Like those are our 2 partners that we do outreach with.
Thank you.
And I wanted to say that some of the books I gave you, they were in the plastic, so you could see how it's actually mailed, but please open it up so you can look on the inside and see those parent tips that she was mentioning as well. So please feel free to open it up so you can kind of get an idea of what that child experiences when they receive it.
One
more quick question. When will we get the data from the school board on the kids that have been enrolled in this program for the last 3 years and entering kindergarten?
The application needs to get approved by the Dollywood Foundation, so we're in that process right now. And then once we get the data, send the kids' names to the school district match, send it back to us, de-identified.
Next year or so, okay. And can I get a copy of this slide to bring to the
Yeah,
board?
absolutely.
Yeah, so members, you know, we're going to have a fund balance discussion at some point, but I'm in favor of increasing funding, one-time funding on this program specifically for the next couple of years. I'd love to double it.
Look at Lee when you said that.
Yeah, I said, did you see Lee? Yeah, Lee rolled his eyes at you. That was funny. I had one other question about the books coming back. Because there are a couple zips that I know that we have that are high mobility zip codes. And I heard you say that you all are not having that issue with books being undelivered or non-delivered because of folks moving.
So,
because some of these zips that are in here, I know there's students that there's at schools where they have high mobility rates in and out. So, and you're not having that in this preschool population?
In the preschool population with the
books, you
books.
said that you didn't have an issue with books being not delivered because someone's moved.
What I was saying is that usually if they don't receive the book, they will notify us and say, hey, you know, our address has changed, Or again, if we are working with the postmaster so that if something comes back to them that's not deliverable or they're not able to deliver it, then they will let me know. They will let us know. But I don't think that we really have a way that if it's delivered to the house and there's no one there, I don't really think that we have a way to monitor that. So I don't know if I'm asking, I don't know if I'm addressing the issue. So I'm happy to be more specific.
It sounds like if families move, they're letting you know, they're updating their address with you. That's what it sounds like in some cases. And then in other cases, the book is delivered and the current occupants don't return it to the post office. You don't have
Right, that's what I was gonna say, yes, yeah, that would be the case. I mean, that's a valid issue, that's exactly what I was getting ready to say. What we found is that the families enrolled in the Dolly Parton Imagination Library, they really, really enjoy getting the books. So usually if they don't get the books or if they move, we are regularly updating addresses and regularly trying to find books that, we're regularly trying to make sure that the book gets to the family.
Right, thank you, and we are over on time, but Yolanda Hagley and I were Terwilliger parents back in the day when our kids were ready for kindergarten. And I remember evaluating schools with my 3 kids, are all in their 30s now, and looking at public schools, and I looked at St. Patrick's, and the principal at St. Patrick's said the difference between kids at the schools you may be going to and our kids is our kids all come from print-rich homes. And that has stuck with me ever since, that difference of print-rich homes, and so all to be.
Yes.
But any comments from the public before we, on this presentation in particular? Thank you so
Right,
much.
thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, Bonnie.
Want the books back? Want the books back?
Huh? Well, if you want the book to be an advocate for the Dolly Parton Imagination Library, please do.
Got a plan, so we don't have to use the fund balance.
Okay, our next presentation. Promised you an action-packed board meeting today, and we're going to move from Dolly Parton to Hope Alachua, the health and opioid prevention effort in Alachua County. And we're joined today by Caroline Anderson, who is with this effort. So this is, again, information for the board to receive. No particular formal action required, but I'm sure we'll have questions. So thank you so much for being with us.
Great. I'm going to wait till the slides are up and then I will get started. And I'm so thrilled to follow the Dolly Parton initiative. My kids love to read, and I think that's such a great program. And I was going to plug Melrose. I noticed Melrose is not 32666 on there. Okay, there we are. So Hope Alachua is a little different than some of the other entities you've heard from today. This funding comes from the state, from the opioid settlement. So I'm going to go through how it was founded and who are our members, and this is truly a community county-wide initiative. So first I'm going to start with our task force members, who Jordan Marlowe, he was the mayor of Newberry when this founded. He was a big part of getting this together. As I was preparing this presentation, I saw that it was several years in the making to be where we are today. So Mayor Marlowe, former Mayor Marlowe, City Commissioner Brian Eastman, Jennifer Ringson from City of Alachua, County Commissioner Anna Prizia. I included, yes, Miss Marcia, the ex-executive director here, and Miss Claudia Tuck there with the county. She's an essential member to keep us up to date. Miss Kathy Penny from Archer, Mayor Gianna Williams from Micanopy, Joy Glasner, who she is a community member in Newberry, and Tristan Grunger, who's the High Springs City Commissioner. In addition to our county level partners and our city level partners, we are partnering with the state through, so the state opioid settlement fund is who provides the funding. Lutheran Financial Services oversees the dispersion of the funds, the same as the Children's Trust of Alachua County. And then also we're working with the Alachua County Community Support Services. But in addition to these, we have these institutional entities, we also have community partners. So one of the people you're gonna see in the packets is Strong Minded Mentors. Jarrell is a community member and he saw a need in the community and he filled it. If I talk fast enough, I think we'll have time to watch the video where you can see Jarrell and the his mentees. Of course, we partner with Grace Marketplace and Meridian Behavioral Care Services, Alachua County Metamorphosis, because these entities in our county provide services to those affected by opioids. RADS Kids comes into to the city, to the schools and provides support services, and then the health and wellness promotion. So these entities are listed on our website and we are working with them on the opioid issue. All right, so I'm gonna back it up a little. Oh. Okay, the history. So this is in your packet. You can read through it, but I'm just going to give you the highlights. So in 2016, there was a statewide survey that said Alachua County was second highest in the state for kids in opioid use, and that was astounding. So 2016, the problem was identified. Mayor Marlowe was the mayor of Newberry at the time and also a high school teacher. And so he said, as a father, a teacher, and a mayor, he felt compelled to do something. So that was really the start of where this happened. In 2018 to 22, he got together, went around to all the different city partners to see if they would join with him to form a coalition. So that's 2018 to 22. There was some initial buy-in, so from Archer, High Springs, Micanopy, and City of Alachua, which is not listed there. So initially they wanted to bring together the funding that each city is supposed to get funding through the opioid settlement. So they were going to try to bundle their funds together to be able to do advertising, against opioids at the time. However, in 2022 to 2024, this is when the funding came through the large settlement. So it was over, and I'm not sure if I have the total number. It was several $billions that is coming through the state over the next 18 years. And it's for explicit to work with opioids. And so this task force is just for prevention. So this line item for us is for prevention. But there's other entities and other funds going to different ways that people are combating opioids. So in 2024, we were part of the first allocation of funding. We got this task force is operated by two different awards, but in total it was around $351,000. And this is distributed through LSF, and then it comes through, the Children's Trust is the monitoring entity. And then finally this year, or actually last year, on September 8th, we planned, executed, and on September 8th, we launched the advertising campaign. So the main through line is that 1 in 7 unprescribed pills can kill. The main point is to target children, because we know that if children get addicted to opioids, before 10, there is like a 10% likelihood that they will not ever become unaddicted to opioids. So the whole through line is to make sure that we target children first. But that being a little tricky because you cannot advertise directly to children, this is who our market is. Okay, so our target market is 17 to 18, but how did we actually connect with those people? We did that in a variety of different ways. So we did English and Spanish radio ads. We did banner ads that are on digital, so on your phones, on your computer, on Facebook, on connected TV, we ran ads, but we also had billboards. We connected with some of our local magazine providers, like Giggle Magazine, who does direct to kids and parents. We advertised there, and then we also purchased some pass-out cards for our partnership schools. So through the Children's Trust, I was connected to the partnership schools, and so we have, we received pass-out cards, and we're also getting some swag so that we can pass out events at like a back-to-school event, specifically targeted kids. Of the advertising, we made 2 minute, 60 seconds, 30, and 15-second versions of the ads. And like I said, if I can speak quickly enough, we can watch the 2 minute version. Overall, this is our impressions. So we're looking at, in total, by the time we finish this year, this fiscal year, around 40 million. To date, we've had 30 million impressions. This is advertising just in Alachua County. So our highest impressions were billboards, but we've been on WUFT, radio, TV20, WCJB, and then Facebook ads, and then connected TV. This is the video too. And you gotta click the sound. The sound is turned off on the YouTube video.
That point was when I had my first.
I personally battled mental health and substance use issues. Married, had 2 kids. Home, I got a job. I've been traumatized by growing up inside of certain neighborhoods. Very close relatives sprung out on drugs. High schoolers now as well. And my heart goes out to them because it's like I can see and understand how their life is going down, and they have so much
drugs, cause like maybe like you say, it come from trauma, but it's a type of way that you can handle it. Like help, it's not just us. It's like we all gotta work together.
My mother, like I would not be alive today if it wasn't for her. She stood by me throughout every single day of my addiction, never giving up, never believing that I was the person that I was. If she would have given up on me, then I would have just been another statistic.
life and social media and the world. You are worth it. You're worth a better life.
All right, so that was the full 2 minute version, and then we cut it down into 15 and 30-second versions. Oh.
Very well. Any questions? It looks like you did get that in under the wire, but any questions from board members? Yes.
I deal with this every day in court. I'm saddened to say I've never heard of this before. Justification other than the fact that it's sad that I haven't heard of it before. What are we advertising though? They go to the site and then what happens? What do they see?
So what are we advertising? Oh,
Advertising
yes.
the program, so there's a website there, and the individuals go to the website, and what are we trying to provide to them?
So at the website, we're connecting them to the community partners. So we give them information about, the list of the community partners that we have that deal with the opioid incidents. But this specific one was to get the attention of the parents, right? So that initially, but then once they get to the website, it's to connect them to our county level partners. So like if they need to turn in, needles or drug takes backs, things like that.
What is the relationship, you all will know better than I, because I'm new, but what's the relationship between this program and the school board?
So right now, we're just connected through the community partnership schools. But my last slide was talking about next year, should it be renewed, is how we want to deeper engage with the community. So not just a pamphlet for the community, like to hand out at the schools, but also to be able to be in the schools and be more engaged with them. So.
I think she answered it. I was going to say the next year talks about the funding for the, upcoming funding and how we intend to do outreach. This year we didn't do any outreach, meaning being out into the community with SWAG, making sure the parents are aware of the resources that are available to them, our partnerships with the school, being within the school, HPW, our partnerships with the county, and the many different programs that they have also. So it's a great question, and that is what the next year intends to be. This year, this first pot of money was to commercials, radio, and try to get the initial attention that way, along with resources on the site.
Member Certain.
So the funding for next year is CTAC funding, or is it from the opioid trust fund?
From the opioid trust fund.
Oh, so it's a yearly allotment?
Well, we are required to submit a budget on behalf of the task force to the county, who manages the dollars along with LSF. And once those dollars are approved, we then are able to implement the program.
So there were a couple municipalities that didn't join on initially. Are we gonna try to get them to come on? I saw something in here about deeper buy-in from all 6 municipalities, but we actually have 9 in the county, so are there?
I believe there's information that's shared with them to ensure that they are aware. We don't limit, the plan is not to limit our outreach to only those who are participating, because the funding is for the entire county. And so the families, whether that municipality is joined with the task force or not, those families will still receive our outreach, our material, our information.
I remember when we were when this initiative was started, at each of the small city meetings, we asked the small cities to do 10,000, and then some were not able to and just didn't do it, and then the county ended up, the county ended up matching 60,000. How much was it? Do you remember? I don't remember.
We never received the funding.
Right.
Because so many of the smaller cities could not, they
Do the
couldn't-
10,000, but
yeah,
then we
they
got that
couldn't do
state
it.
grant, which
Right.
actually
And then that was how we were able to go back out to everyone to say, hey, you don't have to put in any money. There's money that we would be able to draw down. And so please come be a part of the task force. So everyone has been invited to be a part of the task force.
On the state funding, that was a one-time grant?
No.
No.
It's opioid task force money, and so it's from the opioid settlement. So the opioid settlement money is going to last for a number of years. It's run through the state.
Madam Chair?
Yeah, last question. So I'm curious to hear Judge Pena's thoughts about, we're in phase 1, he sees it every day. So how can we, what are the suggestions for connecting kind of the effectiveness of making sure that the word is getting out and that the addictions are being, lowered in our county?
I've seen the ad run on TV. I've seen it only once. But I've seen it run. Yeah.
And expanding,
Commercial every morning.
Okay.
expanding on Member Cornell's point, it sounds like the judge hasn't heard this, and the question was, how can the word get between the opioid task force and the juvenile justice system?
Absolutely. Yes, I would definitely be interested in talking afterwards and see how we can, partner together for sure.
I would also, on your last page, I mean, I think the Florida Gators partnership, that's interesting to think about them as messengers, but Joy Glanzer, who's in your video, the young man who was driving that car, who was impaired, part of his judicial sentence was speaking to driver's ed classes around the county, and it was dinner table conversation in my house when my kids were learning to drive all those years ago. So to your point about in-person presentations, I mean, those were powerful messages, but for a child to hear that firsthand, any opportunities that we could explore with that next year, because media is so fragmented and people don't watch live TV, or, it's hard, so it might be a place to put some muscle.
Very last point on that. I see on the HOPE, and it's number 1, they expand to school partnerships. I see that segment. So how does that work? How are we going to expand the school partnership? How does that work other than just us thinking about it?
Madam Chair, may I speak? Oh, so the opioid task force, when they meet, that is where we brainstorm ideas of how we get into the school system, the relationships we have with Dr. Patton and the staff that work there. That could mean many different things, right? It might be sharing the information directly through Peach Jar, thank you. It may mean working with our Amplify students who were here and having them share with their peers. The possibilities are endless. We brainstorm the ideas, take it back to the task force, and they vote on the ideas that they think these funds should be used for. And so you're asking a good question. We take those back, we brainstorm them, and then the task force has to approve it. But it means a couple different things. I can't answer you right this moment because we're still in the process of brainstorming what expanding to the school partnership means. I think the great thing is the trust has all these partnerships already, and so we piggyback on what we already do. We have our enrichment providers. We have, the mental health programs that are in the school. We're purchasing the swag items, providing the videos to them as an opportunity to expand it in that way, but we do have to take it back to the task force first.
And when we say
The task force, yes.
Does that sound like meta programming?
Yes.
Member Lombardo?
So the way this funding comes down, and it is a huge pot of money, just even for Florida, it's over $3 billion over 17 years, okay? And it can be for prevention, treatment, and recovery services. So this little piece is part of the prevention pot. So it's, right now, they're doing basically PSAs and then a link so that people have resources. There are other pots of money that go to actual treatment providers to provide services that the state prioritizes under their treatment dollars. And then there are others that are recovery supports that can go to any number of other things and that money has flowed through the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Office at the Department of Children and Families, which means it flows through the managing entities, in our case, LSF Health Systems, for that region. So there's different silos to this money, and different prioritizations based on each community and the assessed needs by that LSF in our area. So that's the short kind of how that money flows through the system.
Okay, thank you so much, Caroline. And before we move on, any comments on this presentation from the general public? Yes? Could you please come to the podium and state your name?
Good afternoon. I'm Antoinette Edwards. I work with the school district as Assistant Superintendent of Student Support Services. I have a question and a comment. The question, you mentioned earlier that young kids could not receive the information, that you had restrictions around it, and you said 17 to 18 when you did the presentation, but it said 7 to 18. So Okay, so it is 7?
Yes,
So just
7.
not younger than 7?
Yes, and the reason, the restriction is how advertising flows, right? So it was that the advertising entities cannot directly advertise to children, and especially about this very sensitive issue. So that's where we're proposing, more face-to-face. I would agree. I agree with the board members, more in person. So there were 2 pots of money, one that was directly allocated to digital, that happened a little bit before I came on, but the pot that I supervised, I did really want to bring into the community, which is why we partnered with our local media entities and then put it into magazines. But as you said, it was already allocated for certain types of expenditures. So we had, our hands were tied a little bit, but in proposing the budget for next year, I asked for a little bit of I proposed different ideas to the task force. They're on board, and so now we're in the process of putting that towards LSF again. So we'll see if we can get the funds reallocated. We are hopeful that that will happen, and we do want to, I would agree, I think more in-person connections directly in the schools would be helpful.
So that brings me to my comment. So I would encourage you all to, with the task force, to also make connections with us even before having the larger meetings, because a lot of times when we come to the drawing board about what can happen within the schools, we forget about instructional requirements. Even though many things are very good and important for kids, we also are bound by certain things in terms of minutes for instruction. And so one of your partners for HPW Coalition, for instance, is already working with us to see if we can have a process and wherein we are organizing how that happens to go into schools. And so doing it collaboratively versus lots of piecemeal would make lots of sense. So, contact us and we'll see what we can do. Okay, thank you.
And that's our right person to contact. If she wasn't here, I'd be on the phone with you to say, that's our person.
Time to plan for next school year right now. Yes, Marcia.
I just wanted to add 3 comments. First of all, thank you, Caroline. She has been phenomenal since she came on board to coordinate everything for the task force. I wanted to say thank you to this board because you all saw the need early on, received city manager now, Marlo's request for the trust to kind of be the administrative arm for the task force. So kudos to you all for having that forethought way back when, because I remember when I came on board, I was like, why are we doing this? And it took Jordan explaining it to me. So thank you all, because it's really important work that we're doing. And then lastly, I wanted to add that Caroline mentioned Rad Kids. And so we did receive 2 pots of money this past year. And one was for everything you see with the videos and the billboards and the radio spots. And then another, I forget how much. Maybe, was it 100,000? I can't remember, but a significant amount also went to Rad Kids, and that was for within the school. So I did not want to not mention that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, are we ready for Dr. Pamela Worsham, Letcher County Public Schools McKinney-Vento? It's an acronym we've been tossing around in this room for quite some time. Thank you.
That was me, sorry.
Before we get started, are there any key differences between this presentation and what was in the board packet that you want to make sure we are aware of?
This is the one that we sent this morning, though, correct?
Their package went to them last.
There are quite a few differences. I'm sorry. There are like several pages of differences.
Ready? Okay. Okay, I'm Pamela Worsham, McKinney-Vento Coordinator for Alachua County Public Schools, and we have quite a bit of information in here, so I'm probably going to talk pretty quickly. So the McKinney-Vento program, whoops, is this not working? There we go. Okay. So the purpose of the McKinney-Vento Act, it was established through a federal law that is to ensure that children and youth experiencing homelessness have access to free, appropriate public education by removing barriers. And some of the other information that you see on this slide, we're going to go into more depth in the future slides, so I'm going to skip over that very quickly. But the purpose is that all students are able to get appropriate education. So within Alachua County, we have right now over 935 students identified for this school year. On average, we have roughly 1,000 overall from year to year, but we anticipate that to be increasing in the near future just because of the higher gas prices, the economic changes that are taking place right now. So we anticipate there to be an increase in the near future. During the COVID years, we actually saw a decrease in the identification rates, and that's because the students were not on site at schools to be able to directly connect with them and identify when they were eligible for McKinney-Vento services. And the causes that displace families are primarily the lack of affordable housing in Alachua County, non-monetary evictions, which mean families are put out of their apartments, not because they haven't paid, but because the apartment complex wants to renovate the apartment, the facility, and they make the upgrades, and then when it's time for the families to come back, they've raised the rent and the families can no longer afford to live in that location. So they, at that point, become homeless because they can't afford to move back into the apartment that they were previously lived in. Then also the lack of employment opportunities, full-time, long-term employment is another reason that we see displaced families. So per the McKinney-Vento Act, some of the core required services, which are also referred to as the students' rights, are the immediate enrollment at the time that they present to the school. They're not required to have all of the documentation that some of the other students might have, and that is acquired later on. The school of origin, meaning the school that the student attended when the family became homeless, that's referred to as the school of origin. They have the right to remain in that school. We provide transportation to McKinney-Vento students to the school of origin or to their zone school. We provide comparable services to all non-homeless students that we do to homeless students. So the school district doesn't show partiality. All of the students are provided the same services. McKinney-Vento families are eligible for free meals at the schools. They receive partial credit, meaning they are awarded credit for the work that they've done, as opposed to having to complete an entire year because they tend to move around a lot. They're awarded credit for what they have accomplished, and they also have access to post-secondary education. Oh, that went too far. Okay. So these are some of the services I mentioned, comparable services. These are the services that are provided to all students throughout the school district. The same services are afforded to non-homeless students that are afforded to homeless students. So we have the early childhood and family education. I won't go through all of these, it'll take too long. But the categories, the academic and enrichment, health and mental wellness, and specialized supports, we provide those services to all students in the district. So for identification of the McKinney-Vento eligible students, we do that primarily at the beginning of the school year through the enrollment process. The forms that they complete can identify whether they are eligible for McKinney-Vento or not. They can also be identified through staff and counselors that can refer families, identify families they believe might be eligible or referred to our department to determine if they do qualify. Also self-identification, like I said, at registration. Some of our district staff do home visits, and they might identify McKinney-Vento eligible students and refer them to us. And we have a lot of community partners throughout the community. We have Family Promise, One More Child, Early Learning Coalition, the City of Gainesville. We have several different ones that are not labeled here as well. And our outreach strategy, so that the community in general knows about what we do and about our program, we have partnerships with shelters and food banks, like I said earlier, Family Promise. We also have training for all of our district staff to help make them aware of what McKinney-Vento eligibility is and how they might identify silent indicators of homelessness. We have multilingual flyers posted in areas of town that we would think that they might frequent, and also participation in community events. We had some on our site and some throughout the county this year. So many of our families are not identified through fear, for one thing, but also just they're not obvious. People that are doubled up, meaning more than one family living in the same location, it's not obvious that they are homeless because they are staying in a place, but it is not theirs and they can be put out at any point. So doubled up housing is easily missed. English language learners, just due to the language barrier. Migrant or seasonal people that move around a lot, although we do have a good migrant program in our district. Immigrant families that might have other fears, and also unaccompanied youth that are afraid of possibly being turned over to a foster family. They also are not often or easily missed. So we try to improve our outcomes by ensuring stability, school stability, meaning that's our prime reason for doing the transportation to the school of origin. That will help stabilize them at their school. When their home is not stable, we try to keep the stability in the school. So students experience homelessness, remain in school of origin, show attendance, higher academic performance, and stronger social emotional outcomes, which all translate to long-term community benefit. So we have quite a few challenges and gaps in the program. The challenges being staffing capacity. We also have transportation demands as these families move around from, especially doubled up, move from home to home to home throughout the school year. Trying to, the transportation department to keep up with that is a challenge. We have some of the gaps, federal funding constraints and donation constraints. We might receive funds, but we're limited on what we can spend those funds on. So there are gaps, things that we are not able to provide that we would like to be able to. And the housing and economic instability is another challenge. The lack of affordable housing, the inflation continue to be a challenge for those families. Our program is funded primarily through the federal Title IX Part A funds, which is that's a federal competitive grant. We also have a small portion of funds through Title I Part A, and we receive donations from nonprofit, local organizations, and community donations. And those all have restrictions to the amount of funding. We're going to go into the funding a little bit more in just a moment here. Right now, we are at the end, coming to the end of year 2 of our 3-year Title IX grant. So that means that at the end of year 3, we are not guaranteed to be receiving any more funds to implement this program. It's a competitive grant, and we will apply if those funds are still available. But there's no guarantee on these funds. We have one graph here to show the difference in funding over the recent years. About 3 years back, we had significantly more funding. The current 3-year grant cycle, the funding was decreased considerably, and then even within that 3-year cycle, they've decreased the funding again. So the overall shortage is $147,000 that we've lost over the last several years in funding for our program to support our families. So the McKinney-Vento grant, we have allowable, what I mentioned earlier, the constraints, funding constraints. We have allowable expenses and non-allowable expenses that we can use with our funding. Most of the allowable expenses are things that are directly related to the students' participation in education. So if they need books, backpacks, device, clothing, shoes, toiletries, those are all things that we are allowed to provide with our funds. The non-allowable uses are things that are related to the family housing, in particular, The things that are not allowable are rent, mortgage payments, support for the parents, utility bills, food, for instance. So, so we have a lot of constraints. I can't see the timer there. This is the part that I wanted to emphasize, that McKinney-Vento definition is a lack of fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime housing, which differs from the HUD definition of, or what you might think of as being a homeless person out on the street. So if the family is doubled up, they are still McKinney-Vento eligible, whereas with a HUD definition, they have to be unsheltered or in a shelter to be eligible. So there's a broader, a broader scope, a group of people that we can serve with McKinney-Vento in the school district than is served through the HUD definition. This is basically restating the same thing that I just mentioned, that there is a difference between HUD and the McKinney-Vento eligibility. They're designed to do different things. HUD is designed for housing, and our McKinney-Vento program is designed specifically for educational purposes. So the data and accountability, we have Skyward is our student information system. We also report to the Department of Education every year, and we have to meet the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act FERPA, so it's not, we can't just throw that out there, but we have certain partners that we do share our information as it's requested through the appropriate federal statutes. And I made it close to 10 minutes.
And I know we'll have some questions and conversation. I'd like to kick it off.
The unaccompanied youth that you mentioned, what services do you have available for them if they are identified?
We actually, in the state of Florida, we were very lucky that they've put some special things in place through the state of Florida. We can have a certified unaccompanied youth, meaning we can certify that they are on their own and they are supporting themselves. Other states don't necessarily have that. That affords them some additional benefits through Keys to Home. Keys to Independence, I'm sorry, there are two of those. That can help them with attaining a driver's license, meeting their driver's requirements. It can pay insurance for the first year, 6 months for their car if they are able to get one, which a lot of these students do work while they're attending high school, secondary education. So it also can helps them. It allows them the opportunity to get into post-secondary education. There are some specific allowances for that as well.
Member Cornell.
Madam Chair, thank you for being here today. One of the things I'm interested in is understanding kind of the sustainability of your funding. You had mentioned that it's a competitive grant. You're in year 2 of 3. Can you just talk a little bit to this board about how those grants work? What are your concerns about the upcoming grant, and how can we help as a board or community to ensure that not only you're successful, but maybe we could increase the opportunities if they're presented at the federal government?
Well, it's a federal program, so federal funding is the limitation for the Title IX funds. So our 3-year grant is competitive. It awards the funding for that 3 years. At the end of 3 years, we would have to apply for the grant once again if it's available. So what we can do here on a local level is not as great as maybe just advocating for funding through the legislation, either at the federal level primarily.
You say competitive, who are we competing with? Other counties, other states?
The federal funding is actually a flow through to the state. So the Congress allocates funds to all of the states, and then the states run we apply to our state for our state funding, and it is awarded. That's competitive within our state. Did that answer your question?
Kind of, but no. So,
That's good.
so how much is provided to the state, and how do we access as much as we can of that state money?
It's not a per pupil allocation, but it's based on how many students there are in each of the counties. And so we can't change the funding other than through identification. And that's another thing it's something I didn't have in the slides, but we anticipate that based on census data that roughly 10% of the free and reduced lunch, 10% of the students that are eligible for free and reduced lunch would be expected to be McKinney-Vento eligible. The state has asked all of the counties to identify at least 5%. So we estimate that the number of students that we identify are really just roughly half of those that actually exist.
So the numbers that I've heard reported are 930, but then I read Lee, who was on the video, mention at a meeting last week that he thought the number was closer to 2,000. And I heard you just kind of verify that. 10% of 27,000 kids is 2,700.
That's what we would expect to have based on just previous data and research, but identifying those is the challenge, one of the challenges.
So if we identify more children that are eligible under McKinney-Vento, then we have a higher allocation at the state level based on identified kids. So one of the, potentially, so one of the important factors that we should be doing now, prior to the expiration of your 3-year grant, is identifying these kids. Would you say that's correct?
Yes.
Okay.
But Ken, just to point out, I think as we were just chatting, look at that number. I mean, it's really pathetic.
Well, I was about to get into the patheticness.
259,000 in just 2 years, cut all the way down to 112.
Why was it reduced?
There are a number of, I was not in this position at that point in time, so I can't say definitively.
Neither was
but
she.
I
Does anybody?
I suspect it aligns with COVID funding that was.
So when COVID happened, we lost the ability to identify, and then we lost those dollars.
Yes, that.
Okay, well,
that
COVID's
funding-
been over for 4 years, so
Yeah, that funding ended.
But we were spending down American Rescue Plan dollars.
Yes.
Up until through last year. There was more money that was puffing up.
oh, I see. So the allocation is now back to kind of a normal inadequate amount.
Normal and adequate, and then. it was
And
cut
with no
even
guarantee
further.
that
The closest, I think.
There's another mic. So, no, it's not the ring, because the ring is now gone. All right, so that assumes that the feds will reallocate the same amount of money.
Exactly.
And that's the big pot is whether or not the federal government will continue this funding and at what level. Because it flows down from the feds to the state, and the state can only allocate what it gets from the feds.
Yeah, so I'm interested in maximizing the most that we can get from the federal government. I get that. That's a piece. I'm also more interested in identifying from this local community resources that we can use to solve the problem. So my question would be, if it were only 1,000 kids, how much funding would you need to ensure that those kids were being serviced correctly at the school board?
I do not have, it depends upon, are you talking about just educationally or for their needs overall? I mean, housing. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, only your allowable uses.
Oh, we could certainly use more. I do not have an actual number in mind, but we could certainly use more staffing. During COVID, we had about 7 staff members. We have 3 now. So we could definitely use more staffing, also just supplies in general. It would be nice to be able to do a more robust educational support. I don't want to say, we're hoping to do a summer program for them. I don't want to speak out of turn here.
And you can see too, you know, when you look at 112,000, you hear 4 staff members, we're paying other monies to even pay for these 4 staff members. They're not at all touching at all where that need is even in the staff. Happy to do it because the need is there, and it does represent 4% of our kids. It's 24,500 kids and about 935, so it comes to 4% of the kids, you know, so it doesn't matter how small the percentage, it's what the kids' needs are.
Probably double that, Superintendent.
Well, even if you, yeah, oh, I agree, but our point is, you can't count on our federal funds, that's my point.
No, I agree.
I mean, we're sitting here tossing all kinds of money in from our end, and I have to hear from other people, well, this is really designed for the money is for the kids, you know, during the day and in the classrooms, I'm like, well, these kids are important too, you know, so it's always a tug. And what
Okay,
we do.
last question, and I'll conclude.
Just coming back as Antoinette Edwards, right? So, because serving in the position of student services, even though this doesn't falling under our area, had opportunities to work with Dr. Rejui when he was in the capacity over project development that has this with our title grants. And one of the significant challenges that we know that we have is that although we haven't identified all of the kids, part of that is because many people who are in this McKinney, who fall under McKinney-Vento do not want to be identified. And so it becomes very challenging to figure out who those are. But we do know that once parents and students are identified, she has indicated the importance of having some of the supplies. But one of the other things that we have seen that has been challenging is the number of families that get displaced, even in times where we have had storms in our county. When we have football season and athletic games and people come out and we have families that have been living in hotels or what have you, there is no funding source necessarily to pay for them if they've been displaced, have to get out of those hotels when the rates go up and move to another place, even for a short period of time. Who is paying for that? The school district only has a limited number of dollars in order to provide that, so we might be able to take care of a family for a weekend, but we can't do it for an extended period of time. So we look at the supplies that students need to have, but we also have to think about the housing for family. How can we provide supports, even if that is educational for the adults, determining what they need to do, job readiness for those individuals, because that's where the hardships are. With our social workers, we know that they're going to home visits and they're doing those visits, but they're finding that oftentimes the families are living in cars. And so how do you educate those family members on what the other options are that exist in the community? So when you start talking about dollars, she can't give you a concrete dollar because it's different for every different, every family. What one individual family needs is going to vary significantly from another. But I think about it in terms of what is the educational support, what is it when they have been displaced that we can maintain their living conditions, right? So that they're not trying to figure out how to couch surf and some of those, and then how to even provide information to families to help them understand that the identification is not to target them and create problems. Sometimes there's a lack of trust with government entities when that identification happens. But how do we provide that information that allows them to feel comfortable so that they can trust all of the other services that we offer? Transportation, like what are the entities that exist within the government that says that here is a way to get you some type of reliable transportation? Is it being able to pay for bus transportation to move from one place to another? So all of those, I would think, are the pieces that come in, but they would be a general average for all of those services because they're not going to be the same from family to family. So I just wanted to add that piece in there and to also share with you, because before Dr. Worsham took this position and Dr. Patton were here, I do know, I was here, and I know that the challenges existed then too, and the identification piece is the most challenging of it all.
So Ken, to just another comment. Just when we say transportation, she's talking about, obviously then as the adults, but just to throw it out there about the kids' transportation, right? So if we find out they're at a hotel over here, A, or a grandmother's house, we actually send that bus right there to the school. Now, knowing that busing, only the state picks up 60%. So there again, we're constantly trying to go out of our way to make sure we help with funding that comes from the state that's nowhere near matching what it truly is. Not to even mention the cost of gasoline is just soaring up. But you can see why, Dr. Edwards, we're going to restructure. She and I were talking about that today, because really this is part of our student services team. So within our own district, it'll help to have Pam being right underneath her, along with that long list of services that you saw on that previous page, because Dr. Edwards, who's just phenomenal at what she does, oversees many of those services. But this is really tied in. So I don't chat with her today, say, how is it she's over here? Just to maximize, every time we can maximize our people, it's better.
Dr. Hart?
So Pam, if you had a magic wand, And I know there are things that you cannot do for the McKinney-Vento students because there's federal statute saying you can do this, but you can't do that. But pretend we're the magic wand. Are there any gaps that you can see that we could fill in for these children that wouldn't break any rules?
Not break any rules. Well, that, remove that last statement, it would be housing and transportation for the families. We have a pretty good support system in Alachua County right now for the food, but housing, food, and transportation are the things that are the greatest needs for these families.
And directly to kids too. You see that word on here, the second word after school supplies, backpacks. Everybody loves to help kids at the beginning of the year with backpacks, but what people don't know is when you have your kids, by January you go and buy them a new backpack. These kids never get that second backpack. So for a low-end cost from the Children's Trust, we know who these kids are. Just getting them another whole round of those backpacks and all the things that go with it goes a long way. We know where these kids are, but nobody remembers that midway through the year, they tend to need even more help.
Other questions? I've also heard the same with hygiene supplies.
Right, all of those. But there's another one on here. So when you say these are like low things, but they're big to the kids, right? On a day and see the things, the graduation fees, school activities. These are kids that never get a senior picture. Have a senior. It's so expensive to be a senior with their, all that stuff and. Just, and then even the rings, the graduation gowns, $35, so the schools are sensitive to it, but again, just having a small pot that can get right there is another way.
Big topic, we're not going to solve at 6:03, but any other, where would the board like to go with this conversation, or, Any other, we have Dr. Edwards, thank you, but anybody else from the public who wants to?
William Nice, I'm a social worker, so I do have a little bit of a question and I guess a little bit of a follow-up. So you're saying that basically there's 900 current people identified, and we're looking at 3 times that as a potential gap, right?
2 times.
Well, 2,700, I thought you said? If that was the potential for that, then that would be 3 times the, roughly.
It's 2,400.
2,400, okay. So even with that, right, comes the challenge of, even if you had affordable housing, even if you had transportation, who helps the children and the families, right? So I think one of the things I saw on the McKinney-Vento thing was homeless liaisons and an ability to kind of fund people that can help people navigate systems. And I think it's critical that obviously when you have students, they're leaning on their teachers, right? The teacher is the grounding force within there, and sometimes school social workers. But I think also it's when the family is actually then navigating housing, is navigating transportation, and all of the other resources that actually stabilize the children and the family. It's who are the advocates that can actually help them navigate through these systems. So I think it's critical to look at how do we build out additional resources for the institutions that we're leaning on, right? Obviously, we know that one family homeless shelter has closed, and so that need is now overflowed to other community partners. And so how do we make sure that the community partners that are currently meeting this need, especially if it increases, has the resources that they need in order to make sure that they're taking care of these families? So I think that would be a big thing.
Thank you for that. I think I missed your name, though.
My name's William Nice. I'm a social worker by training.
I briefly mentioned it, but I might not have spoken to it as strongly as I should have, but that all of the things that we don't provide, we refer out to other, those are our community partners that I mentioned, Family Promise, things of that sort. We refer these services to these other entities because we don't provide housing within our school district. It's a non-allowable use of our funds. So we do rely on our community members, which basically is what he was trying to say, is that we have to refer out for those things.
Can I add one more thing to that? I think one of the things that you guys mentioned is the hesitancy for people to share what they're experiencing, right? Not only the stigma of homelessness, but what happens if people find out? Are my children going to be taken away from me? And so I think well-trained professionals, obviously as a social worker, I may be a little biased, but I think well-trained professionals that can really explain and educate families, but also allay fears that families may have about, well, if I let you know you're going to take my children away, will help people walk through a system. I think most people are afraid that I'm already overwhelmed. I don't know how to handle this. And so good professionals that help people walk through complicated systems, even as a social worker, these systems are sometimes overwhelming for me, and I'm not even in that space. I think having that is what helps families be successful and ultimately leads to children being successful long-term. Because I've worked with many people that are 50, 60, 70, and unfortunately, when I ask them where everything began, it was in early childhood. When they were on their alone and weren't getting the help that they needed. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
And Mary, the positions that Pam mentioned, that we have the other three, it's exactly what he mentioned, the family liaisons and a social worker. So aligning, because in this area and space of work, those are the people that have the most potential to be able to help.
Looks like we have another member of the public.
I'm Adrienne Tiki. I'm here actually for Hands on Gainesville, but I'm going to speak as a personal member of the community. I have seen this problem as a long-term educator in Alachua County, and one of the gaps that I have seen is the lack of education to the teachers of what they can do when they identify a student. So there is a disconnect there, and I have been personally involved in many cases of students who are experiencing homelessness, and I had to go out years ago, and I didn't even know about McKinney-Vento, so I had to find out about it, and since then have been a staunch supporter of the McKinney-Vento with, you know, our church and our membership communities. But there's also a gap at the 18-year-old level when McKinney-Vento is releasing a student, and many of our students at years 18 place out of their, or are dumped out of their families because they are not getting support, financial support in the families, but they're also placed out of McKinney-Vento. And there is a gap in our 18 to 24-year-old age students who are not in the program beforehand and then can't qualify when they're leaving. So just to keep that as just an awareness.
Anyone else from the board?
Chair. So at this point, Madam Executive Director, we're coming up with a report. Is that, we're kind of facilitating things? Is that?
If you all will remember, Dr. Hart requested that staff research what could be recommended to the BOCC from the trust. We have a convening of a select group of folks on the 27th here at the trust. It is, Christy, remind me of the title.
Family eviction and housing stability.
Convening, and we will be talking with our family resource centers because we really feel that that's the resource that should be a part of this conversation that we are currently funding. Family Promise is going to be at that convening. Our folks from the continuum of care, as well as some other key folks. So we should be bringing something to you all at the June meeting, some form of a recommendation at that point. Well, we're going to try. And then I also, Madam Chair, do want to bring, because we neglected to mention it, you all have 2 letters, one from the county and one from the city to the trust. So I did want to make mention of that before we adjourn.
What I would say is if that meeting actually happens, I would recommend that Member Hart be our elected, or our board representative along with staff. My recommendation, since you've been talking about this, Nancy, for 2 years. Thank you.
I know, swag took a long time too.
Excuse me, our last opportunity for any general public comment, not necessarily on this topic. Right? Board member comments, takeaways, who would like to start?
I'm good, thank you very much.
Member Hart, I know you've got just lots to noodle over.
I don't have a comment, but I just want to let Marcia know the June 8th meeting, I'll be here, but the joint meeting, I won't be here. Our state association meets that week. So I think I mentioned that to you guys when you set the thing that the two of us would.
And I know I feel terrible that I feel like I'm hardly ever here, but both days in June, one is all the superintendents with our police officers, or for us, Chief Pelton. So we all are together, and then we have our joint meeting with the superintendents and the school board members same week. So I'm sure sorry about that, but know that I always read everything and keep up on everything. And Marcia, thank you truly for the in-between phone calls, because you can read a lot, but you can also kind of get the gist of things. So thank you.
You all, I will call to your attention the 4 items 19 through 22 in your packet that are for your information. And our next meeting is June 8th. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for